As a software engineer, lately I've been trying to integrate AI into my process for writing code. I've been trying to find ways to leverage AI as a learning tool to help me code more productively. Two great tools out there for this purpose are ChatGPT and Google Bard. Both are similar in that they offer prompt-like interfaces where you can interact with the AI by feeding it a text input and then see what it has to say. I find this most useful for researching complicated topics and coming up with problem-solving approaches. Now, a big advantage that Google Bard has over ChatGPT is that its information is more up-to-date. ChatGPT has a knowledge cutoff of September 2021, so some of its coding suggestions may be outdated. This could be problematic when using a system like JavaScript or Ruby on Rails, where new features may be added to the language within a period of months. So here I'm going to show you a few examples of my experience with Bard and why it may not be quite ready yet to achieve its full potential as a coding assistant. Programming is such a complicated topic that it's easy to forget some of the nuance. AI can help by giving you a quick refresher on the basics, saving you a lot of time digging through chapters of lengthy tutorials. Here's an example where I asked Bard what's the difference between let and var in JavaScript. And as you can see, it gave me a pretty nice summary of the difference, even going into detailed topics such as hoisting of JavaScript variables. Now, as nice as this is, it makes me wonder where this knowledge came from. Was it purely from official documentation sources, or did it also scrape blog articles written by independent authors? If the latter were involved, there could be potential copyright issues here. What if Google Bard becomes so effective that everyone comes here for knowledge instead of landing on independent blogger pages that are supported by ad revenue? That could de-incentivize content creators by taking away their traffic and monetization, leading to less input for Google Bard to use in the future. Such a cycle would be a lose-lose for everyone. Next, I asked Google Bard to help me write some simple JavaScript code. So I wanted to format a date in a particular format as a string. I asked it how would I approach this problem, and it wrote me out some sample code for doing that. A pretty simple task, not very complex, but Google Bard could save you some time by doing these little simple routines that you may have to do, but time consuming. The third thing that I find Google Bard to be very useful at is giving you an overview of high-level ideas, like what is the difference between different software packages or frameworks. So in this case, I'm trying to learn some Kubernetes here, and one of the tools is called Minikube, and there's also a similar tool called Kind. And I asked it to give me what the difference is between them so I could decide which one is best for the development environment that I want to set up. So Google Bard wrote me a little essay here showing me the difference between Kind and Minikube and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then you could also ask it follow-up questions here to get an even more detailed sense of the particular question that you're asking if you want some follow-up information. Now I'm going to show you some examples where Google Bard really messed up. There were some instances where it gave me misinformation. Here's an example of where I asked it the best way of incorporating metadata into my HTML page that will be used by JavaScript code but shouldn't be visible to the user. Google Bard suggested using the meta tag. Now, the problem with the meta tag is that it can only be used in the HTML head section of your page and not the body section. To use it within the body section would cause you to have an invalid markup according to the official HTML specification. I wanted to see if Google Bard was sure about this, and I asked it, does the meta tag have to be in the head? And it said no, the meta tag does not have to be in the head. It could be placed anywhere in the HTML document. This information is false. Yeah, you could even do a quick Google search here and find on several pages here that the meta tags have to be inside of the head section and you can't put them inside of the body. I asked ChatGPT this exact same question, and ChatGPT came up with the correct answer, which is that you should use a div instead of the meta tag, because the meta tag can only be used in the head section. You could store other types of data within that div and just not display it like it shows right here. So that example was one of many where Google Bard provides incorrect information. Here's another tricky programming situation I was in where I wanted to assign the contents of a file to a file upload field on my web page using JavaScript. So in this case, I have a form and I want to be able to drag and drop or paste a file onto that form. And to do that, the JavaScript is able to pick up the drop or the paste, but it needs to insert it into the form and be able to upload it. Now, I was having trouble doing this because any web browser I would test my code out in would raise a particular error message. So I wanted to see if Google Bard had any possible solutions for working around that error message I was getting in the browser. And what Google Bard suggested was actually very similar to what I was already doing, which is just assigning the file data to the value of that input field on the web form. However, this is what was causing me the error. And I had this back and forth dialogue with Google Bard trying to figure out what the problem was. And Google Bard kept insisting that its code was correct. So what I had to do is I had to turn to some Google searching, and I found this Stack Overflow thread where it told me that I have to use a data transfer object in order to do that. So basically you have the file information, but you have to wrap it in something else in order to assign it to the file upload field. And Google Bard completely missed this. Here's the error I was running into. It's called a type error failed to set the files property. And Google Bard couldn't figure out exactly what that was. It failed to provide me working code that I could actually use. Eventually, I found out about this data transfer object, and I told Google Bard about that, and look what it says. It says, oops, look, you are correct. And it kind of does like this whole sorry thing, and then it gives you the right answer. And then it says, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just an experiment here and I'm still learning. Okay. Well, the problem is it's so confidently wrong that it could really lead you down a wild goose chase where you're trying to use the code that provides you and that code is factually incorrect and you have to go somewhere else. So anything that Google Bard gives you, you need to take with a grain of salt. So as I mentioned before, these are just a few select examples of problems I've run into when testing Google Bard. And I've actually run into many more instances of errors similar to this, much more so than when I'm testing out ChatGPT for programming in my experience. And I think a key takeaway here is that AI has a tendency to sort of gaslight you with incorrect answers when it's wrong. It could be confidently wrong and insist on something. And then when you give it some contrary information, say, no, you know what, I looked this up and I found out that you're wrong about this, then the AI quickly backtracks and will admit, or it will just tell you, oh, look, I'm wrong. I guess I'm wrong and I'm just an experiment. And it kind of makes me wonder if Google prioritized Google Bard so that it gives you an answer and sounds authoritative about it, and it prioritizes that over having correct information. And to me, that's a little bit ironic for a company that sort of concerns itself so much with misinformation on its platforms. But in some way, Google Bard reminds me or makes me think of an employee that might be a little bit incompetent and a little bit lazy and will make up stuff just to submit a report and make it look like it's getting some work done and doesn't check its facts very well. This could be very dangerous in the future if we become more reliant on AI for information, and even more so if we have AI connected to systems that might be making life or death sort of situations, and the AI has to make judgment calls, such as running a car or an airplane or doing medical sort of stuff, where an AI could be confidently wrong in the decision that it's making, and it could have very bad consequences. So I think in conclusion, AI, the more it becomes human-like in its interactions with us, the more we may have to worry about human-like problems. Hey, if you thought this was a useful video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. See you next time.